Okay, now we want to start talking about long-term memory. As I said before, it's relatively permanent. I mean, obviously you forget some things, but you can have information that you've stored from when you were 5 years old that you might still remember today. You might remember the rest of your life. You can remember experiences, you can remember things you learned to do, you could remember definitions of words, you can remember the spellings of words, you can remember facts, you can remember certain special birthday parties. There are a lot of things that you can remember, and it turns out that there are different types of memory that are stored in different ways, and basically there are two basic categories: declarative and non-declarative memories. Declarative is also called explicit long-term memories, and non-declarative are implicit long-term memories. So the explicit memories include episodic memories and semantic memories. Implicit memory can be, examples of implicit memory are procedural memories, classical conditioning, which is essentially a process through learning, and priming. So we'll talk about each of these coming up. Okay, your explicit memory. These are various facts and experiences that you can consciously know and declare. You can state this. Okay? You can say you can tell me how the word armadillo is spelled. You could also tell me what an armadillo is. You can just tell me what an armadillo looks like. You can tell me those things. You can tell me about the time that you saw a squashed armadillo on the side of the road. So you can remember these things and state them and tell me about them. You can consciously know them and declare them. They are explicit. Implicit or non-declarative memories, you cannot just simply tell me. You cannot just simply state them as they are. When you learn an action, for example, when you learn how to type, you can't simply just tell me how you do it. You just go ahead and do it. Your fingers have the memory, if you think about it, right? It seems as though your fingers have the memory. Well, really, your brain has the memory, and the brain is telling what the fingers are doing. So it is an implicit memory, but in other words, your ability to type and move your fingers in that fast way, or play piano, or ride a bicycle, this is coming from your brain. Your memory system has the capacity to store your information about how to do this. And it just programs essentially your fingers and your legs to move to do the various tasks you need to do. It is not something that you can just tell someone how to type, how to play piano. You can't teach people how to play piano by telling them, by writing it down in a book and giving it to them. They need to practice. They need to actually do it. Okay? And we talked about, how these explicit and implicit memories have different categories, can be further subdivided. So let's talk about the subtypes of explicit memories: the episodic memories, semantic memories. Episodic memories are autobiographical. Episodic memories refer to events that happen to a person, events that you experience, that you can describe. Semantic memory is your knowledge about the world. So, for example, going back to the armadillo again, you know how to spell the word armadillo. By the way, it is spelled, if I'm not mistaken, A-R-M-A-D-I-L-L-O. You can check a dictionary to check my spelling if you wish, but that is how armadillo is spelled. I also know that an armadillo is a small animal, approximately a little bit smaller than a groundhog, I guess. It's kind of grayish in color. It has a hard shell. Kind of has a long snout. And I know that it eats insects, and I know that it makes holes in my backyard. So these are things that I know about an armadillo. They dig holes, they have a long snout, whatnot. Episodic memories are memories of things that happen to us. So I might remember seeing an armadillo in my backyard digging a hole. And I might remember chasing it away. Okay? That might be an episodic memory. That is something that happened to me. You might remember seeing a dead armadillo on the side of the road on your way to school yesterday. So these are things that happened to you. I did not see the armadillo on the side of the road that you drove on. Okay? You did not come into my backyard and see me chasing the armadillo away. So these are episodic memories because they happen to you as that you experienced. Okay. So, nevertheless, these are both explicit declarative memories. You can describe them. You can tell people the story about what happened. If we're talking about an episodic memory, and you can tell about the meaning of a concept is a semantic memory. So let's summarize some of the ways in which we can distinguish the episodic memories from the semantic memories. In episodic memory, they are measured in units of events or episodes, so times in our life that they happened. Semantic memory, they are the units of facts, ideas, concepts. Episodic memories are organized by time. When did it happen? The semantic memory is about concepts, the meaning. They're not attached to any specific time. Again, I know how to spell the word armadillo, but I don't remember when I learned how to do it. It's a semantic memory. I can't link it to a specific time in my life where I learned how to spell armadillo. I am sure there was a time in which I first encountered the word and learned how to spell it. I just don't remember. With episodic memories, there may be more of an emotional attachment to it. It happened to you personally. Maybe it was something that you found exciting, a birthday party that you had, a great experience you had traveling. This is your experience. This is what happened to you. Semantic memory. I may remember I may know the facts about how tall the Eiffel Tower is and what works of art might be displayed at the Louvre. But unless you actually go to Paris and see these things and experiencing it, doesn't have the emotional attachment to it. Retrieval process. With episodic memory, you're trying to remember. You're trying to link. Oh, let's see. When was it that happened? Oh, I'm trying to remember that. So it may be more deliberate and effortful because you kind of have to go back in your own experiences to try to find this information. With concepts, we are so automatically, we know so many different things. We know English, the English language. We know so many things and kind of automatically know it that we can just state it like right away. So these concepts, the definitions of words, we have a huge vocabulary, and we can get this information very quickly from our memory. Okay? When you're trying to retrieve episodic memories, you're trying to remember those things. You're trying to remember, oh yeah, I remember when that happened. With semantic memories, this is stuff you know. I know how to spell armadillo. I know what an armadillo looks like. I didn't need a hint to get at that. I need to deliberately remember something. So, it's stored in my memory. I know it already. Education. With your episodic memory, it doesn't matter how educated you are. You might never go sit in a classroom in your entire life, but you might be living on the bayou and hunting and fishing, and know so many different things about your experiences about hunting and fishing and everything like that. You may remember a lot of different things about your life that has nothing to do with what you might learn in school. Semantic memories, though, your knowledge of concepts and facts, yeah, getting an education is important for that. You need to be able to be educated on terms of the various concepts that we need to know. It helps you develop your language skills and everything like that. That's important with semantic memory. With episodic memories, intelligence also is pretty much irrelevant. You're experiencing these different things, you remember them. It doesn't necessarily matter if you have a high IQ. With semantic memory, your knowledge and use of different facts and concepts, definitely relevant. Finally, interestingly enough, when it comes to legal testimony, episodic memory is like basically eyewitness testimony. If I saw the guy grab the lady's purse and run off, that's eyewitness testimony. It's an episodic memory. You were there, you saw it, that's what you remember. However, your knowledge about how thieves approach victims and how, the reasons behind crime and everything like that, these are semantic knowledge, facts, concepts, whatever, may not be necessarily admissible in court, unless, of course, you're talking about someone who provides talking about an expert witness, talking about the psychology behind the defendant or something like that, and, trying to look at it that way, then it would be admissible, and that's where semantic memory would be important. Now, when we get to implicit memories, now we're talking about a different story. Now, this is something you cannot simply just declare and tell and talk about. This is something that, we have a past experience, and, maybe we don't consciously recall it. We know how to ride a bicycle, but we can't really state it out loud, describe it like that. And that riding a bicycle would be an example of a procedural memory. Your knowledge of how to ride a bicycle is a procedure that you can do. Your procedure of knowing how to type and use those fingers really fast. That is a procedural memory. Again, you think about it, your fingers know what to do. Well, it's your brain that controls your fingers, and your brain has stored this memory. And in fact, there's a certain area of the brain that is more important for procedural memories. If you think about that allow you to, that are important for again, guiding your fingers when you're doing your typing. Talk a little bit about priming. When we remember things, as we kind of mentioned before, you have these different cues that can kind of trigger one thing you're trying to remember. And if you have only one cue for your trigger, or one cue for the thing you're trying to remember, well, you forget the trigger, then you're going to forget what you're trying to remember. If you have multiple triggers, multiple cues, then it allows you to connect to what it is you're trying to remember. So if you can touch on one of those triggers, one of those cues, it can activate the memory process, activate you remembering something. Okay. So if you see a picture of a rabbit, maybe you hear about rabbits, you see a bunch of rabbits, and you hear rabbits, and it's a whole rabbit theme. It activates the concept of a rabbit. And then when you are given a list of spelling words, and one of those words happens to be hair, well, that trigger of the priming of seeing the rabbit might actually lead you to spell hair, H-A-R-E. And it turns out that people who are exposed to the prime of the rabbit are more likely to spell hare H-A-R-E, even though clearly hare H-A-I-R is the more common use of the word hare, and therefore, but nevertheless, getting primed with a rabbit, you get to it makes you more likely to think about a hare as basically a synonym for a rabbit or a type of rabbit.